Hello and welcome. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
It's 7 o'clock. Thanks for being right on time.
I
I know a
know,
couple
impressive.
people are filing in here. We usually give about 5 minutes till we
Yeah.
start. So thanks for coming on. If you are able to have your camera on, that would be great because we love to see you and interact. But if you can't, we totally understand. And that's okay too. So we have a lot of great stuff to share with you guys tonight. So we're excited to jump in. This has actually been a topic that's been on my heart for a while to focus on, to
Yeah,
focus on.
because it comes up a lot.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, it
Comes up
has.
a lot.
Yeah, this is great. So welcome. I was just saying, if you are able to have your camera on, we'd love to see you. If not, we totally understand. Sometimes it's not good timing for that, but this is great. We're getting
I don't have
everybody.
my camera. Let's see.
Oh, okay. And that's okay too if you're not able to. But you are welcome to have your camera on. And like we will definitely share the please interact in the chat if there's anything that you have questions about. Let us know because we're happy to talk about those at the end. But attachment is something that is I'm very excited to speak about tonight, both Dan and I, because there is so much healing that happens when you deal with unresolved grief, and it really affects attachment, all kinds of, I want to say, issues and disorders and all the things.
Well, I think it's because that's where you really see it the
Yes,
most. Like where it's a change or a difference that you really experience in a very kind of big way. So some of the other changes can be a little more subtle.
yeah, yes. I have shared this before, but I feel like the gentleman that created the grief recovery method, John James, was so ahead of his time in so many ways. How many things it helps when we process our grief. So we're excited to jump in. We have a lot. So we have a good amount of people that have jumped on. I wonder if we should just start. Go ahead and start. Feel free to open up your camera if you want to. We will be asking questions at the end, and we'd love to see you. Otherwise, just share them in the chat. But hi to everybody that's here.
Yeah, welcome all. We just want to say a quick thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we really want to make the most of that for you. And if you are here today, then chances are that you have felt the weight of grief and loss in your life, and you have experienced how it affects the ways that you relate to other people. So it could be a situation where maybe you've struggled with trust, emotional intimacy, or just even feeling safe in your relationships. Maybe you find yourself caught in unhealthy patterns, no matter how much you try to change them. Um, well, let me just put it this way. What if I told you that the way we attach to others is deeply connected to unprocessed grief? And healing is possible when you understand the patterns that shape you and your relationships. So, before we really dive into all that, there's just a couple of housekeeping things I wanted to cover just so we get the most out of our time together. First, the workshop is going to be about 90 minutes. The last 30 minutes we set aside for questions because we love questions, honestly, and we'll stay on until all the questions are answered. So we say 90 minutes, but if there's people that are still asking questions, we'll stay on to answer those. But also, we would love to see you. We would love to connect. So, if possible, I know it's not always possible, but if it is, please have your camera on. And then again, as we go through this, please feel free to interact with us in the chat. If you have any questions, put those questions in there and we will definitely address them in our Q&A at the end. Absolutely. So thanks again for being with us, though.
Yeah.
By the
Um,
end, well, I was just going to say, sorry to
I'm
interrupt.
so sorry. I just wanted to say really quickly, thank you guys for jumping on. And Dan, I don't know if you can see the chat, but hi Tish, I can see you there. Denise, I wanted to just say thanks so much for I'm glad you enjoyed the book. And yes, it's really helpful. And I've done some of the no-nos innocently. Yes, thank you for sharing that. And that's really, really cool. We're gonna talk a little bit about that. We're gonna talk a lot about that tonight, about things that we didn't realize were no-nos that we do, not really realizing how we might be shutting someone down. So thank you.
Yeah. So our goal here by the end of this webinar, you'll understand, number one, how unresolved grief shapes the ways that you attach to others. Two, how unhealed grief affects and impacts trust, intimacy, and emotional security in your relationships, and can even make healthy attachment feel impossible. And lastly, how breaking free from these unhealthy patterns is the key to building deep, meaningful connections with others.
Yes. So, how do you know if you are in the right place? So, we want to ask, do any of these sound familiar to you? You crave deep, meaningful connections, but struggle with trust or intimacy. You often feel anxious, distant, or like you are maybe too much in relationships. You fear abandonment or rejection, even when things are going well. Actually, especially when things are going well, that can tend to be when a lot of triggers come up when things are going well. We were waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? You keep repeating the same painful relationship patterns. Maybe you want to break free from past wounds, but you don't know how. Hi, Kelly. Good to see you.
Kelly?
So if any of this resonates with you, then you are not alone and you are definitely in the right place. Many of us were never taught how to grieve or how to process loss or how to navigate any emotional pain. Instead, we learned to survive, sometimes clinging too tightly to people, to others, and sometimes by pushing people away before they can hurt us. But here's the truth. You attach to others. The way that you attach to others is almost always shaped by the grief you haven't healed. So, very important. So, if we don't address that grief, it keeps replaying in our relationships again and again. And so, we want to really talk about why. So, we're going to look at this as your journey of transformation. So, we are with you here in this journey. We're on it ourselves. So, we've been on it for many years. And so, in doing that, I think it would be helpful to tell you a little something about myself. My journey with grief and healing, it isn't just something that I teach, it is something that I live. I've seen firsthand how grief, when left unprocessed, can destroy lives, relationships, and even recovery itself. I've also seen how healing grief can set people free in ways they never imagined, because this is helping people to heal at the root and not just focusing on the symptoms. My journey started with recovery from alcohol. When I was 26, I got sober from alcohol. And I also had a very pretty severe eating disorder in all my 20s. It took me a couple more years after sobriety, actually, and a lot of therapy to work through that. But when I was 10 years sober, I discovered the grief recovery method, and it literally changed everything about my recovery, my sobriety, about my life. Um, I found myself in a lot of therapy talking about boundaries and codependency. And I just believed this is just who I am. I'm always going to struggle with those. I have addictive background. I have addictive family. None of us know how to deal with conflict or loss or anything. And I just really never could get it. I read the book on boundaries. I spent a lot of money on therapy to try to understand how to not be codependent. And it just wasn't possible because the way I learned how to survive was the foundation. And so even when I was learning and I was growing, when things would happen, I would always respond out of what I knew, which was the foundation. And so that is why when I went through this process in a very short amount of time, healing happened in a way that never ever had happened in any other therapy, in any other program. And I was able to be present in the moment and have boundaries, know how I felt. All of a sudden, codependency started to make sense to me. All of those things cannot happen without having that clarity. And if you are living where you are having not knowing how to have boundaries, you're being triggered all the time, you can't have healthy attachment. It's all connected. It's all connected. And so the attachment kind of has to start first with you, with yourself, that healing that happens there. And so for the last 20 something years, I guess I started doing grief recovery in 2003. So I've had the honor of walking alongside people who have been stuck in these painful cycles, whether it's addiction, self-sabotage, broken relationships, or even overwhelming emotions. So I can tell you from personal experience that the transformation is real. I swear, I promise you.
Yeah, and I think, we're talking about attachment, and it's always good to just sort of take a minute and actually define what is that? And then secondly, why does attachment matter? Well, the first thing is attachment is really at the heart of all human connection. It determines how we experience love, trust, emotional closeness. And so, because it starts in childhood and the way that we bonded or struggle to bond with our caregivers, it doesn't actually stop there. What happens is we experience grief, loss, and trauma, and our attachment patterns begin to adapt, sometimes in ways that actually hurt us more than they help us. And so, for that reason, some people struggle with fear of abandonment, other people struggle with fear of intimacy. But when grief is unhealed, it continues to shape our relationship in ways that we don't even realize. And so our attachment style, which, like I mentioned before, forms in childhood, it actually shapes our relationships into adulthood. And this is why unresolved grief is a root cause of these patterns of anxiety, avoidance, and insecurity in our relationships. And so this is exactly why Vicki and I are here. When you experience something that really changes your life, I mean, at a core foundational level, I don't mean something that just gives you like a little feel good goose pimple, but something that actually changes your life, you want it for other people. And like Vicki, I had a very similar life-changing experience going through the grief recovery program. And I would even go so far as to say that it's transformed every relationship that I have in my life, especially our marriage. I'll just give you one quick example. So there are a lot of triggers that come out of my childhood from my dad. And so these triggers, there are certain ones that would happen, and then it would kind of cause a disruption, sometimes an argument, but it was just very disruptive to our relationship. And when these triggers started to get healed, because I actually processed where they came from, then our relationship was different because these things would come up. There was a habit there that would cause me to want to respond, but I actually had some space to make a different choice. Now, I wish I could say I always made the right choice. I did not. Um, there were arguments that after, but what did happen is that there was a transformation that started and continued and has continued to grow and has continuing and continuing year after year. So it's really been a powerful thing. And thank God for that, because now a lot of times these things come up and it's actually a source of laughter for us. So we can actually kind of joke about it and have fun with
Yeah.
it instead of it being like this, knockdown argument. But as we both worked on the foundational relationships in our lives, the healing and the tools that we learned, it changed the way that we communicated. Um, it increased our capacity to forgive. It allows us to have more compassion, to help us truly listen and honor each other. And so Vicky and I are both advanced grief recovery specialists. We have a combined 26 years of experience and have guided thousands of people through literally life's toughest changes in order to experience true healing. And so we've witnessed this incredible truth. When people get free from the unresolved grief in their lives, they are free to be fully present in their relationships.
Yes, very powerful. So, to better understand the hidden impact of unprocessed loss, it helps us to name these losses. So, for example, if you experienced a loss of safety when you were growing up, it could bring about a fear of emotional closeness. So, an avoidance of deep connections. If you experience a loss of trust, it can develop anxiety in relationships, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, a loss of identity. It's an overdependence on relationships for self-worth. Like you have to be in a relationship to have worth, kind of a thing. So you'll settle. You'll settle for things. A loss of love, repeating painful patterns. A lot of self-sabotage shows up in these. So what's so amazing is that you start to understand that grief doesn't just come from losing a loved one. Like it doesn't just come from death. It does, but that's not the only thing. It comes from any loss that impacts the way we see ourselves and the world around us. So if you, like we talked about, if you lost safety in your home growing up, if there wasn't a safe place for you, sometimes physically, but especially emotionally, it's so important to have emotionally safe places, especially in our homes. And we talk about this a lot in our parenting, a lot. It's our number one thing. But it's hard as an adult to trust other people. And
Yeah.
you've developed all these coping ways because you had nowhere to go. Maybe you lost a sense of belonging in past relationships, so you cling too tightly or push people away. Maybe you even just lost the hope for the love you thought you'd have. That's a big one. And we can settle for relationships that don't really fulfill you or that maybe don't treat you the very best because you settle, you have fear. But grief doesn't just live in the past, it shapes the way we attach to people in the present. And that is why we believe so strongly that healing grief is the missing piece in transforming our relationships.
Yeah.
So we look at this. This is kind of signs of unhealthy attachment. When grief is unhealed, our relationships become battlegrounds for our deepest wounds.
Yeah.
I even want to repeat that. That
Yeah,
is
that's worth saying again.
when grief is unhealed, our relationships become battlegrounds for our deepest wounds. We repeat cycles we don't want to repeat. We hold on too tightly or we push people away. We deal with this abandonment or rejection all the time. And like we said, it can lead to accepting abusive and toxic behavior because we fear being alone. So it's something else to avoid confronting truth and reality because it's just too risky to
Yeah.
be alone.
Yeah.
So the next one is healthy attachment. So on the flip side of this, when we heal our grief, we gain the ability to trust, communicate, and connect without fear. When we experience secure and healthy attachment, relationships become a place of safety and connection. We feel safe and secure knowing that we are valued and accepted as we are. Trust flows naturally, allowing us to communicate openly and honestly without fear of judgment or fear of rejection. And vulnerability becomes a strength rather than a risk. So, as we share our true thoughts and emotions with confidence, we know if conflict is arising, we don't have to fear that. We don't have to avoid that because we recognize it is an opportunity for growth and understanding.
Yeah.
So this is something when even as we're speaking about this, that we realize we need to be this in order to experience this. We need to be this first for ourselves and for our partners or for our kids, right? And then we get to experience that from a partner. We're going to attract what we are, right? So in a securely attached relationship, Challenges are navigated with respect, empathy, and a genuine desire to resolve issues, always in a way that strengthens the bond. And that is why healing is so important, because it isn't just for ourselves, it is for the relationships that we want to build.
Yeah, and that's really key. The bottom line is that you can't experience strong, healthy relationships while you're carrying the weight of unresolved grief. Because first of all, you need freedom from the pain of grief, trauma, and loss. And then you'll have the freedom to experience your life and relationships to the full. So we believe that true transformation kind of happens in two phases. First, there is, as the slide suggests, the freedom from stage, right? The freedom from the things that are keeping you stuck, like grief, loss, trauma, self sabotage, things like that. Then phase two is you experience the freedom to live the life that you were meant for, right? Peace, purpose, connection, and joy. And I think a lot of recovery programs will try to get you to step into freedom without first releasing the weight of your past. And that's why a lot of people stay stuck. But fortunately, that's not something that you have to. You don't have to stay stuck. That doesn't have to be you, right? Healing, in fact, doesn't have to be complicated. It really just comes down to three simple but very powerful steps. And these steps will help you experience a healthier relationship with the people in your life. So, step number one, simply acknowledge the grief that you're carrying. You cannot heal what you haven't named. And it's time to start naming your hidden losses. Two, heal the wounds that shaped your attachment. We need to learn how to process grief so that it is no longer controlling our relationships. And then lastly, we need to rewire our beliefs and habits to create secure attachment. Because healing doesn't mean that we forget our past. It means that we free ourselves from the weight of it, which then allows us to build relationships based on trust, connection, and emotional security. The bottom line is that when you heal grief, your relationships change. You stop reliving the same pain over and over, and you make space for deeper and more fulfilling relationships. And that's exactly what our Freedom from Grief coaching will help you do.
Yes. So we're going to dive into these steps a little bit here. And so the first step is acknowledge the grief that you are carrying. So this step is critical. It's the first step, and it is to stop running from your grief and acknowledge it. Like we were saying, grief is not just about death, it is about any loss or transition. If you think about that, you really opened your mind to how many grieving experiences we have in a
Mm,
lifetime. A lot, often. Lost relationships, lost time, lost opportunities, even the loss of who you once were. Ignoring grief doesn't make it go away. It just buries it deeper where it leaks out. And it leaks out in addiction, self sabotage, anxiety, and relational instability. So when you start processing your grief, you remove the need for unhealthy coping mechanisms. And we have the very best method to guide you through this in an incredibly structured and thorough way. So, step number one, the takeaways are you can't heal what you don't face. Like Dan said, we've got to name it, right? Grief doesn't just go away, it waits until it's addressed. And processing grief helps you become fully present in your relationship and start truly living. That's step
all right.
one.
And this brings us to step number two.
Yes, step number two, heal the wounds that shaped your attachment. This is very possible. I'm here to tell you it's very possible. True freedom comes from healing the wound that shaped you and your attachment style. When it comes to the way we attach to others, our past experiences often speak louder than our intentions. Have you ever found yourself responding in a certain way and inside you're saying, no, no, don't say that, don't do that.
Yeah.
And you're responding, it's overriding. It's
Yeah.
overriding. Our past experiences come forward even more so than our intentions do. Grief, loss, and unmet emotional needs create wounds. And those wounds shape how we navigate relationships. They can leave us feeling anxious, avoidant, or insecure, even when we long for connection. And these attachment patterns aren't random. They are deeply connected to the grief that you've carried, grief that has never been acknowledged, let alone healed. And when grief is unresolved, it doesn't stay in the past. It shows up in the present. And it influences how you react, how you interpret someone's actions, and whether you feel safe. But when you learn to process grief instead of suppressing it, something remarkable happens. Grief no longer controls your relationships. You gain clarity about why you respond the way you do. I love how Dan said earlier, you get to have space to have a choice to respond differently.
Mm.
And it's a game changer. It really
Yeah.
truly is. The anxious thoughts and those fears of rejection will start to fade, and you'll stop withdrawing or shutting down when things feel overwhelming. Healing grief allows you to step out of survival mode and into a place of security. So you're no longer at the mercy of old patterns. And instead, you have the tools to navigate challenges with emotional resilience, trust, and a sense of self worth. And this is because instead of healing the original pain, we keep living from the same patterns we developed to survive. That is just like a bottom line. We keep living out of those same patterns. But real freedom comes when you heal the wound at the root.
Yeah.
So, this isn't about reliving your pain. It's about releasing it so it no longer controls you. It's about acknowledging that what happened to you was real. The loss, the trauma, the grief that you carry matters. It's that we're here to say you don't have to carry that alone. We are here to help you. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about making peace with it so that you can finally move forward. So, the takeaway for step number 2 is you can't just move on from pain you haven't healed. Unprocessed grief literally gets stored in your body and mind. And until you face it, healing is about releasing the pain so that it no longer controls you. So there is a way to do that.
Yes. Yes. And finally, um, how do you rewire your beliefs and habits to create secure attachment? When you release the unresolved grief that has shaped your thoughts, your emotions, your behavior, something very powerful happens. Clarity replaces confusion, peace replaces inner conflict, and momentum replaces sabotage. If you tend to feel anxious in relationships, healing grief is going to help you stop seeking constant reassurance and find the inner confidence that you have been longing for. If you avoid closeness and push people away, healing grief allows you to soften the walls around your heart and experience being vulnerable without being fearful. If you struggle with low self worth or rejection, processing your grief helps you release the belief that you're unworthy of love, and it makes room for healthier, more connected relationships. The attachment patterns that once protected you from further pain don't define you anymore. I mean, they never really did, but I mean, they definitely don't define you once you're free from them. As you experience healing, you are now moving towards secure attachment, where relationships actually become a source of joy, support, and authentic connection. Not perfect, but at least they're not now a source of fear and uncertainty, right? When the healing happens. So, this process, I mean, we could kind of go into a whole other rabbit trail here, but bottom line, this process literally rewires your brain. New neural pathways are being created. So the freedom that you've gained actually becomes your new default. You are not your past. You are not your wounds. Those do not define you. They had influence on you for sure, but they do not define you. And as you heal, you'll discover that the freedom to love and connect without fear is something that you have always been worthy of. And so here's the takeaways. Healing grief removes the weight that's been keeping you stuck. Clarity brings momentum so that you're no longer fighting against yourself. And this breakthrough actually rewires your brain for lasting change.
Yes. So now that we've talked about what it looks like to experience freedom from these things, let's take a moment to explore what the freedom to would look like. So, what would it feel like to trust yourself? What would it feel like to trust yourself again? What would it feel like to build relationships without fear or to pursue your relationships without sabotaging them? Let your mind wander for a moment. What would this freedom to feel like for you?
Yeah.
And this is something, if you want to just jot it down, if you want to share it with us in the chat here, it's so good to even think about that, the possibility of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So now that you kind of understand how grief and attachment are connected, the only question that remains is, are you ready for real freedom? Vicki and I believe that the grief recovery program is the best and most effective way to heal the wound. Sorry, I'm stumbling. To heal the wounds at the root of your struggles, and then finally break free from whatever it is that's holding you back. This is not a just random program. It's literally the missing piece. And when you heal your grief, the unhealthy patterns in your relationships will be transformed. And our coaching program is personalized to help you experience life with strength and resilience. So if you're ready, we would love to talk about what this would look like for you. This is an 8-week one-on-one coaching program that meets once per week for 90 minutes on Zoom. So during our time together, we will walk alongside you and help you heal from the wounds of your past, to break free from false and limiting beliefs and everything else that we've been talking about so far. Each week, we'll be working through the Grief Recovery Handbook, and you'll have ongoing support throughout our time together. And so let me just take a moment to say that, if you are here as one of our valued alumni, in other words, you've already gone through this before and you're sort of here for a time back, hang on, because we would love to invite you to the next step in the healing journey of grief recovery, which is alumni sessions, which is a whole other amazing, amazing thing where you can continue the work.
Yes. So, when you consider what is at stake, your relationships, your general happiness, your future, I always think of, if you have children, their future, like all of your relationships there, you begin to see just how valuable this program really is. We have spent literally several years and thousands of dollars on self-help books, on therapy, on seminars and programs, and we never experienced the transformation that we did with this grief recovery method. It is literally, you're amazed at what happens in 8 weeks. Like, you're just amazed. The real world value of this program is massive, and we really want you to experience that for yourself.
Yeah.
So we want you to take a minute to think about the relationship that currently holds pain for you.
Yeah.
Is there a relationship that is specific in your life right now that brought you here? Or is this just maybe a pattern that you see you want to make things better? But think about a relationship that currently holds pain for you. Think about, what do you wish could be better or at least different than it is right now? Think about, what would it feel like to show up differently in that relationship, at home, with the people that mean the most to you? And what would it feel like to be fully engaged in your life and be able to be fully engaged in a healthy way in the life of of other people in your life? And let that really sink in, because it is absolutely possible. We can only change ourselves. And when you do the work of emotional healing, it will transform every relationship in your life. And like we were saying, it starts with the relationship that you have with yourself. but you gain an entirely new level of emotional resilience. We always say this is like a course in emotional maturity. It
Yeah.
really truly is. It allows you to establish boundaries that that enable you really to be honest with yourself and others in a respectful and healthy way. And when you think about, imagine a relationship without being emotionally triggered.
Yeah.
Triggers aren't a bad thing. Triggers are indicators. They're
Yeah.
indicators to lean in and know that something is being triggered. That means there's something that is being brought up for you to heal, for you to talk about, for you to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just quickly break down the value of this program. Um, we have a 30-minute consultation call that's valued at $100, 8 weeks of 90-minute one-on-one Zoom coaching calls with ongoing support valued at $1,200. But as a thank you for attending today's webinar, we have a special offer for everyone, which Vicky is actually going to talk about next.
Yes, and we are very excited because if you are ready to take the next step, or even just want to learn if you are, like learn more to know if you are, we're offering $100 off the 8-week recovery program and a free consultation. We're waiving any consultation fees, so it brings the whole thing down to $1,100 for 8 weeks, hour and a half sessions, and we are in this with you. We are available in between sessions to talk through each step of the way. The consultation call, if you are on here and you are having questions, please, we're going to put a link in the bottom here to
Yeah.
set up a call. I highly recommend that you do because literally we create a personalized roadmap for you that will guide you on this healing journey. And if you are an alumni and you want to do more sessions with us, which we do a lot, we do a ton of alumni coaching. So you're welcome for the same free consultation call. Set it up, and we'd love to talk to you about that because there's even deeper healing as you do the work. The work is something that we do in the beginning. We teach you the tools. It's like we get to teach you our we give you our tool chest. We give you our tools, we walk you through how to use it, and then we want to equip you to be able to use this in other ways. And these are really tools you will use throughout your life, I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. We're still using them.
Yes, all the time.
So the bottom line is, I mean, it's not news to anybody, but dealing with painful emotions is really scary. I mean, there's absolutely no way to sugarcoat that. But just try this little thought exercise with me. If all this did was help you to heal the unresolved grief that's been holding you back from showing up as the person you've always wanted to be, wouldn't it be worth it? If all this did was equip you with the tools to create a life where you are thriving and growing and living in deeper connection with the people that you love, a life where you feel safe and emotionally grounded, wouldn't it be worth it? Imagine what your life could be like if you healed those wounds and experienced this kind of transformation in your relationships. And the good news is you don't have to imagine it because grief recovery will do that for you and so much more. And I just want to take it even a step further. Take a moment to really consider the cost of staying exactly where you are right now. Now, think about where you are right now and think about you're still there a year from now, 2 years from
Mm.
now, 3 years from now. Consider the cost of continuing to struggle with self sabotage, with damaged relationships, with unresolved grief. What we're really talking about is an investment in you and your future and the legacy you want to leave behind. And trust me, you are totally worth it.
Yes, and we are here to answer questions, but we have a few here that we have gotten often. So we wanted to talk about these for a little bit. So the first one is, but I'm not sure this will work for me. Um, And so we want to say that every single person, and I say that confidently, every single person who has fully committed and went through the whole process has experienced transformation. The only way you won't is if you quit, if you don't finish. But doing this process is so life-changing, we know that it will work. It will work for you. Sometimes you can feel like, but I've tried everything. And we want to just tell you that this is different. It actually goes deeper and it will rewire your thinking at both an emotional and a neurological level. It really does. Um, and this one too is the cost. Sometimes the cost obviously can be a hindrance. And so we want to say, like Dan had asked, what is it costing you to stay the same? What is it costing you to stay stuck in these same behaviors and patterns and waking up every day with that same feeling of defeat and depression, anxiety, all of those things? Everything that we learn costs something. And can you think of anything worth more than your family, your kids, your relationships? This is an investment in you, in your family, and in your legacy. And we are happy to talk about doing payments. We are so happy to do anything we can to help facilitate this process for you.
Yeah.
Another question that we get a lot is, I'm afraid to deal with my grief. Yes, this makes so much sense. Like, I'm afraid if I open up Pandora's box, it's just going to go on and it's never going to stop. That is a very valid and it's a very scary process. But we are here with you every step of the way. And you'd be amazed because I have found that usually the way people feel, even after the first or second session, is even though we are talking about things, we say unresolved grief is about undelivered communication. So you want to be able to communicate. But people already feel better. They feel hopeful. They feel better because they know there's purpose in their pain, but there's also purpose in sharing about it. So
Yeah.
that's really, really important. And then the last one is, why bring up the past when I just want to move forward? This is a big one. This is a big one. And this is something that you might hear from people in your life when you decide to do something like this. They go, why? Why do you want to bring up the past?
Yeah.
We hear this often because most of us have learned to survive by not feeling, right? We've learned to survive that way. The truth is, we don't move forward until we process our wounds, our grief, our losses. In fact, we stay where we are. We don't grow. We stay where we are. We stay stuck in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
this,
this is,
sorry,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
So this is really something that honestly it isn't like anything else out there. It's a step-by-step action program in which you are fully supported at all times. While we're doing this program, we will never ask you to do something that we don't do first. And you will be amazed at just how much transformation happens 90 minutes a week for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Every session builds on the next, and it uncovers and heals a lot more than you can probably even imagine right now. Our only resource for this program is the Grief Recovery Handbook, which is included. And it's also backed by more than 40 years of research and is considered the gold standard in recovery from grief and loss.
Yes. So, like we say, it's the time to act is now. Don't wait another day to start your journey to healing and transformation. This is a powerful opportunity to change your life for the better. And starting now is always the perfect time. We always say it's never too soon to start and it's never too late.
Yeah.
Yes. So you'll be amazed at how different your life will look. So we are here to answer any questions. And I
Hold
see a
up.
question.
Hold.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna throw in, there's a quote that I love from James Sherman, and he said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." And I just want to throw out one last thing, and that's that. Look, Vicki and I, we have done this program ourselves. We've done multiple relationships. We believe in this. We love it. We make no apologies for advocating on its behalf. But I also have to say this about readiness and obligation. And that is that if, let's say, you came here because somebody was kind of guilting you into it or leveraging you into it, please don't do it out of that. If you're feeling like, you know, you're coerced in some way, don't do it. The way that this program works is when you are like, yep, this is what I want to do. I'm ready to go all in. I'm ready to take the leap. And if that's the place you're in, then yes, absolutely. If it's not, if let's say like a husband or wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, like somebody else in your life is kind of leveraging you, or like they bugged you so much, you're like, finally, I'll go into the webinar and see what they're talking about. Fine. Please don't do it, because this really has to come from a place where you see the value in it for you, and then you want to do this for you, not for somebody else or not for some other reason. And we always say that because that's so critical to your success in it. So I just wanted to throw that one little caveat out there. But I think we have a question, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do. Thank you so much, Maxine. She is asking, how could 8 weeks session fully transform someone's grief when every individual has a different timeline for how long it takes for them to grieve their loss? And that is a great
That's
question.
awesome.
That is a great question, Maxine. Yes, and I think that is something that we talk about in the very first session. Actually, we talk about the things that we've learned about grief and loss, and there is no time. We don't believe in time. What do you call it? Like, there's no time that it takes for someone to grieve. Like you say, everybody's different. It takes everybody a different amount of time, right? But the process that we give you, the tools that we give you are going to allow you to process your grief in a way that you haven't really experienced yet, that I can tell you. So we want to respect that everybody has a different timeline, but the tools that we give you, the steps that we take will help you process that grief with us in the time that we have there. It's kind of hard to explain unless you experience it, but that is a very good question and it makes a lot of sense. Would
Yeah.
you add anything to that, Dan?
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that we uh, feel kind of sad, because there's that mythology of time heals all wounds, as if a certain amount of time, no one can say how much time, but there's a certain amount of time, and then you're supposed to be just magically over it. Um, and what we're doing is, grief, if it just sits there, yeah, it's just going to sit there. What we're talking about is taking an action program that equips you with tools to walk through a process where, if you are willing to process your grief, then you can get through it, and then you can change your relationship with the pain. You can release the pain, and you can change your relationship with that loss or the grief that you're suffering. Yeah, and I love that. Time has been my grief and sadness source. Vicky, actually, we were talking to a group one time about this, and there was a woman that came up to talk to Vicky about it. She was like in her mid to late 60s, and she was talking about her husband that she lost like 30 years ago, and she just lost it like it just happened yesterday, because grief just sits there. It just sits there and stacks until it's processed. So yeah, I could not agree more, Maxine. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and I want to share too, like when it comes to this, we talk about grief is accumulative and it builds and it builds. And you are right, time does not heal at all. And that's what we love about this process because it is an action program. And what happens is you are able to get complete. We talk about emotionally complete. You get to get an emotionally completion, and that is what helps you to process. Um, Tish Ann is here with us tonight, and she has graciously offered, and I think it would be a perfect time, and we can talk about this even more. But Tish, if you would like to share your experience, we would love that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Vicki and Dan. Yeah, so I was introduced to the grief recovery program 20 years ago, and I went to an information meeting, and there were about 3 or 4 people who were sharing their experience of having completed the program. Um, and I sat there kind of, what would be the word? In disbelief, like because at that point in the grief recovery method, it was a 12-week program. But previous to coming to that meeting, I had been going to counseling once a week for a whole year. And what the people shared at the information meeting of the transformation, the change in their heart, the healing in, in a relationship, I hadn't achieved in a whole year of going to counseling once a week. And so I sat there really doubting that 12 weeks could work like they had shared. But I also played with the idea that, but if it's true that it could work, then it's worth the try, because I just had so much pain in my heart, and especially in regards to my relationship with my mom, who's still alive today. So it wasn't due to a death per se. Like, the main relationship that was on my heart was my relationship with my mom, which was always very volatile and painful. And so I did, out of faith, I guess, like hoping that this is going to work. I was pregnant at the time with my son. He's now 20, just turned 20. And previous to completing the grief recovery program, when I was pregnant and I would see my mom, when I would go to visit, I would hope that she would not touch me, like my belly. I would hope I was really inside me. I kind of cringed when she did. Like, I didn't express that to her, but I just literally did not want that to happen, for her to reach out. And so then I went through the whole 12 weeks. I worked on my relationship with my mom in that time frame. And I went to visit her a week after completing the 12-week program. And I was sitting at her computer table, and I felt my son move. And I just called out to her. She was in another room. And I said, "Mom, he's moving. Do you want to come feel?" And I invited her to come feel my belly, not premeditate. Like, I didn't think of doing this. It was like an automatic offer that just came from nowhere. And I left her apartment that day dumbfounded. Like, I was like, what just happened? Like, how did I go from hoping she would not ask or reach out or whatever, to offering her to come and experience him moving? I mean, that blew my mind. I knew that there was a shift that happened inside of me from just completing the grief recovery program. So, all that to say, this program is powerful. It is it's life-changing. It does produce shifts. It does do things you don't think what would happen in, now it's 8 weeks. And it's just, yeah, I would just encourage you all to step out on faith faith is being sure of what you hope for. If you hope for healing, if you hope for, life change, heart change, just the heaviness to be like less of that heavy burden, then do it. It's worth every penny. It's worth the time you're going to put in, which is only 8 weeks. I mean, literally, yeah, I would just encourage you to do that.
Tish, thank you so
Thank you
much.
for sharing that.
I
You're
love
welcome.
that story and the shift that happened for you. That says so much right there. Yes. And it is a very, very, very valuable. And I know, I know it does seem crazy to think that it's gonna do something in 8 weeks. The program is the same program. It used to be 12 weeks, but we spent a kind of more time on some steps that we found that it made people procrastinate, procrastinate doing the work. So we shortened it, and that was when we were working in a group setting. So you had a lot of people that needed to share. So
Yeah.
we realized that it can work. We figured out how it worked the best working one-on-one. And working one-on-one has just been amazing. That was something that we started, in 2020 when everything went online. And we really realized the power of that, of being able to work one-on-one. It's truly a coaching experience that I believe we can even go deeper and take the tools even more, even more. There's so much to talk about, but I did put the link up here, the link for if you want to, that link will actually bring you to both of our Calendly links. So feel free, whoever you would like to chat with. Maxine, I would love to chat with you more about what you shared here, most definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you click on that link, it should take you to our Calendly links so you can set up time with us. You are going to get an email thanking you for your time here with us tonight, and it is going to have a replay of tonight's presentation. It will also have our links there, so you can click on that, or you can even just respond to the email.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's also a free ebook too.
oh yeah, and you're going to get an ebook that has everything that we talked about tonight about the different ways that it shows up in attachment. I would love to know if anybody is on here, are there specific areas in your life in attachment or in relationships that kind of brought you to come tonight? We'd love to, you could either un put your camera on or just unmute yourself, or you could ask us in the chat. Um, yes. And Maxine, sure, if you or your mom or both wanted to talk to us, it's amazing. When I went through the process, Dan went through it soon after, and my mom went through it soon after, and it was amazing. It's incredible when in fact, we work with couples all the time, and it's the first thing that we do. We say the first thing you have to do is do grief recovery work first, because that's foundational. And when you have two people that are willing to do that, it is going to transform your
Yeah.
relationship. Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Good.
So, um, if there are any questions, like I said, we just like any questions you have, we want to answer them. Oh, there we go. Does the person share their background information? What instigated the grieving journey during the consultation or first few sessions?
Yes.
Yeah,
That is,
that's on the consultation. So the consultation is just to sort of, you know, talk through like, hey, what's bringing you to this? What's the situation that you're going through right now that makes you feel like this is, what you need to do and the next step that you need to take. And then we'll kind of go through and describe the program in a little bit more logistical detail, as well as talk about how it can help you, and just again answer any questions that come up. You know, I'm here to
and
counsel if friend. She parrots her hurts, griefs, and wounds. It's now going on 10 years, and I don't know how to help her. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely, Denise. Yeah, feel free to share this. And that, yeah, this is for everybody. This is like anybody that feels like, hey, I know somebody that could benefit from it. Yeah, that would be great. Go ahead
Yeah,
and
that's
please feel free
awesome.
to share it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this, Denise, you're bringing up something really good, and I wanted to mention this. So, when you say she parrots her hurts, griefs, and wounds, what I'm hearing you say is that she replays it. She keeps talking about it over and over, 10 years, and I don't know how to help her. And it's very interesting because in this process, the you do get the chance to talk about it. We're gonna, in fact, we have certain steps that we do along the way. You're gonna share your whole life, actually, and that'll kind of answer for Maxine as well. You do. But what we do is, like we said, there is a process. So we're going to go through and we're going to teach you how to process through that because you are so right. You need to be able to talk about it in order to get complete. But what we are here to do is help you to not live from that anymore, not
Yeah.
live from that, and so that you can get what we call emotionally complete. And when you think about that, it's very different than getting closure. People will say you got to get closure, and sometimes you go, great, what does that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? But when you get emotionally complete with something, it's, think about it like this. If you have a sentence and you finish the sentence and you put a period, that's the end. It's a hard stop. But when we have losses in our life, whether it's from death, divorce, anything that changes, like we were talking about, your life, any transition, it's not a hard stop. There's always more. Even in
Mm,
a death, there's still an emotional relationship. In a divorce, if you have kids, there's always going to be, like there's always going to be something. And so we talk about it how if you think about the period as a hard stop, but what we do in getting emotionally complete is it's like we put on a semicolon. So it's the ending of that, but there's more. And what comes after that semicolon comes from a place of emotional completion so that you can feel freedom in whatever that looks like. Whatever it looks like. If you are living without a parent or parents, if you are living past a divorce that was so painful, any kind of thing like that, and down to any transition in life, any
yeah.
transition, kids moving out, becoming an empty nester, we're dealing with that. A lot of people we know are, um,
Yeah. And
and
thank God I had the grieving process because it's really hard, honestly, not having my daughter,
yeah.
but one thing I was going to say, Denise, on this is that, when people don't process their losses, all they live out of those losses.
Right.
So if she doesn't process her losses, then it's kind of like she's gonna, you know, she'll be talking for the next 10 years and the next 10 years after that because, that doesn't get you it's not just about, going over and rehashing it. It's actually processing through it and then getting to the other side because then at that point, you're not living out of the loss anymore. You're now fully present in your life, and now the loss was still there and you still had whatever pain is associated with that, but you're not living out of that pain, and that pain is now you have a different relationship with those things in your life, and that's what fundamentally changes. But that was, yeah, because I feel you on that, you know um
And Maxine, thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry she lost her brother. And
oh,
disrupted your
yeah.
entire family. Yes,
Mm, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, that is 100%. There's so much there. We talk a lot, obviously, like I said, about getting emotionally complete. Well, I mentioned this before, but unresolved grief is about undelivered communication of an emotional nature. So when you think about what is undelivered communication, that's things that you wish that you could have said, but couldn't or didn't. And there's
yeah,
all kinds of emotions that go around that as well. And so the kind of the crux of the process is that we are here to give you a safe place, emotionally safe It's confidential, it's everything, right? To connect to your emotional truth. We give you a place to share that emotional truth by being heard without judgment, without minimizing, comparing, or fixing. And we give you the tools for you to get emotionally complete with the pain associated with this relationship.
Yeah.
And with those steps, those are the crux of the steps, then you are able to step into life in a different way. Yes, it's very hard to communicate how we feel. And especially in a family, like you said, I like how you said your entire family system. Everyone is so interconnected, right? And so we're also very aware of how what we say and do affects the other person and how,
Right.
like you shared your mom. And so everything. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Ish, I like, oh, and your mom. Yes. Yeah. So she stops leaning on you as her grief therapist. Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And I can tell you this so much. It's funny because when I first started doing grief recovery, my mom was worried and she said, I don't know if this is maybe the right thing for you because you take on everybody's stuff. You're always the one that people come to, right? And she was worried about that.
Uh-oh.
But I can tell you that there's nothing, learn boundaries. I think we're back. Is that better?
Yeah.
The
Yeah. It just
connection.
froze for a second.
There is nothing that has helped me to be able to be um, emotionally connected with people without carrying their the weight of what they're going through. I can tell you this changed everything for me. And that's part of what you get with the tools also. You get to learn how to really process your own, and you're able to give other people the dignity of help of letting them do it too, which is a mind shift for sure. Um, okay. What would you say about doing this program if the people around you don't do the program so the skills fall on deaf ears? That is a great question,
Yeah.
Ashley. I love that you're here, by the way. I love that you're here. Um, and yeah, and I do totally see what you're saying. It isn't going to change the people around you, but it is going to change you and your mindset and the way that you show up. So also, you'd be amazed at a lot of times people see change. They see a lot of change in someone, and then they are quick to go, "Wow, I want to do that. I want to experience that."
Yeah.
So that could happen. You never know. That could definitely happen. But I would
Yeah.
say don't let that stop you from getting the healing, getting the process. And we
Yeah.
can,
Because ultimately it's for you. It's not for them.
yes,
You know.
exactly.
I mean, it would be great if they, would be open and receptive, but it's at the end of the day, it's for you. It's for you to experience this. It's for you to be able to show up differently, and hopefully
Yeah.
they'll come around, but it's really for you. So
I just wanted to share, Allison Bright Garber referred me to you, Vicky.
Oh,
And
great.
I think it was you that she had met with one-on-one.
Yes, it is.
Lost her dad. So, and I lost my brother exactly a year after she lost her dad. So
uh,
we have been really helpful to each other. She's been more helpful to me, I would think, but I would say, but she's been wonderful. And she literally sent me the email about this um, webinar or workshop or whatnot when I needed it due to job
mhm,
loss, actually.
Oh,
So
wow.
just
Okay.
really, I've been suffering with like job, not having a job for the last year. So
mhm.
I was like, wow, good timing, Allison. I will join the group. So, so thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that, Maxine.
yeah.
Please tell Allison I said hi. That's really awesome.
I will.
And yes, we can hop on a call anytime. I'm happy to do that. Happy to do that. Another thing that I have seen with people, and I tend to say this to them near the end, I'll say, do not be surprised if you get a promotion of some kind. Because when you do this work, that is so it is so life-changing. And when I say promotion, I mean in any kind of way, whether it could be a new job. I know quite a few people that got engaged after doing work like this. And it's not like, this, this happens, but what happens is as you get healed and you really do the healing work from all these things, then you realize that you have been held back maybe by this unresolved pain that's been in your life, and it's hard to see ahead, and it's going to change the way that you view life, the way
Yeah.
that you view relationships, like we talk about. What is when you have an attachment issue or an attachment style that's unhealthy, probably a better way of saying that. I hate that word issue. But when you have attachment style that's unhealthy, you're always going to attract people in your life that are going to kind of do the dance with you, you
Yeah.
know? And so as you heal, you're going to see that you're going to attract a different type of person, a different type of job opportunity, a different type of, living situation, whatever it is, whatever that is. Even in like Ashley, what you were saying, even the people around you, it's going to elevate because you're elevating. You are elevating who you are in this emotional way. So it's very, very powerful. And I really believe that it does create a lot of opportunity that you wouldn't have been able to see and receive before.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Because
think the biggest difference is your relationship with the past. So, like I was talking a little bit earlier in the webinar about how this helped my relationship with Vicky. Well, that's because, when she would say something, I wasn't living out of the past where I had all of this damage and all of this pain and all of this anger and all this resentment. I was just hearing what she was saying right then and there in the
Mhm.
present. And that made a huge difference. Made a huge difference because then I didn't always respond the right way then, but at least it was I had an opportunity to be different instead of just there's a trigger and then there's a reaction, trigger, reaction, because you're living out of the past. And so being free of that because you've now experienced completion with the past leaves you and frees you up to be in the present. And in the present, you are now showing up as a different person because everything that happens around you, whatever is said around you, whatever is done around you, you're a different person. So you're not even receiving those things the same way that you once were. Now, Vicky says something, it is what it is. It's not, oh, that thing that my dad said 15 times, it just is what it is. And so that's why there's, so much change that happens, which is, really powerful. So, um, what was let's see, there was a question.
Oh, Tiffany, thank you.
Oh,
Hi, Dina.
cool.
That's awesome.
We love Dina.
Yes, we love Dina. Tell her I said hi.
It's awesome.
Dina is someone that went through grief recovery around the time I did, and that's how long we've been friends. And Dina is someone that I do a lot of alumni work with.
Yeah.
We help each other. She's been incredible partner for me. Incredible. Yes. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for being here, Tiffany. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do believe that is so true, Dan, what you were saying. It's like it's so yes. I know, you know what? I should get Dina to come on and share her story. She has such a great story. Oh my gosh, yes. Um, thank you, Tish. That's awesome. Yes, Tish is still using her tools 20 years later. That's so awesome. Um, yes, and I think that it's so, and I can share Dina's story because this is just one. Everybody has like five stories. There's so many ways that this has helped their life or affected it in some way. But one of the ways with Dina, and we were roommates. Man, Dina got engaged and got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 3 days later, and we were roommates at the time. And so she did a very quick, they got married in 3 months because she had to start treatment. And in the process of all that, they found the next year that she could not get pregnant. and they kept trying and trying. And so she was, it was really hard, obviously. It was really hard. And it was a dream that she really had to wrestle through. And after doing this process, she was not open to adopting. That just wasn't something she was open to at all. And it was amazing because one of the things that happened after she did this process was she decided to look into adoption. And she started to feel like she actually had a dream that her kids were waiting for her. And they ended up going to Russia, adopting two kids, and have had this beautiful family because she got unblocked. She got to allow this process to heal her heart from the loss.
Mm.
It was a big loss for her to not have kids. That was a dream she had had her whole life. And she got these two kids, and they adopted two kids. They were not siblings, but they were in the same orphanage. And if you saw their family, she looks just like Dina,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
he looks just like Randy.
yeah.
It's so crazy. Like they look, you would never know. And they've just had this incredible story. And her daughter just got married, and we got to grow up, with my daughter and her kids. And it's just been an amazing story. But she will tell you that she would not have the kids if she hadn't have processed that grief and loss the way that she did, and how not only did it process for her, did it help her to heal, but it opened her heart to kind of really grasping that this is what I was supposed to do all along. Um,
Mm.
it was a really beautiful process. It was not easy. It was not easy. And that process happened over the course of a few years. But man, there's just so many. And like I said, I could tell you many stories of ways that grief recovery has helped me. I use it all the time. I use it all the time. And it's something that Dan and we teach in parenting classes, in parenting coaching, that the most important thing in your home isn't having emotional safety. And
Yeah.
you can't offer something that you do not have. You can't you can't present that for your children or your spouse if you don't have it. If you're easily triggered, if you are struggling with attachment stuff that is anxious or avoidant or I'm trying to think of the other word. Um
Self-sabotaging.
yes, all of those, what'll happen is that it's impossible to create harmony. And so we know that this helps. We know that this helps more than anything. So we just want to encourage you um, to check it out,
Yeah.
to make a call. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, beautiful story. Thank you, Tish, for sharing with us. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was very cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine. Glad that you were here.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for being here. And I mean, if we have any other questions, we'll be happy to take them, but otherwise we'll hop out. But like I said, you know, we'll stay on as long as everybody has questions. So, but if nobody has them, then we can let you go too. So,
Yes. And if any of you have thoughts, we do a free workshop like this once a month. And there we like to focus on a specific, yes, thank you, Tiffany, very much, and Maxine. We like to focus on a theme. So if you have a thought of a good theme, let us know. We
yeah,
have done webinars on addiction. Our last one was on addiction. It was so good. We have if you go to our YouTube channel, Inspired Life, our YouTube channel has all of our recordings there too. But you can also let me know. I can send it to you. Um, we've done some parenting. We did a holiday workshop. But if you have any ideas of any kind of specific, um, what's the word?
topics.
Topic, let us know. We would love to dig into that because we really truly have seen that underneath almost all these things that we talk about is unresolved grief. And
Yeah,
when you deal with that, when you heal those foundational coping mechanisms that you learned, everything else just changes. So if you are in therapy, this goes along so well with it. If you're in recovery, I always say if you're not dealing with your unresolved grief, then you're not actually going to experience true recovery. I
Yeah.
know that's a bold statement. I
And
stand
it's
by
going to
it.
deal with you at the end of the day.
Yes, I stand by it, but it is so true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah. Thanks,
If
you
you
all.
if you want to
Appreciate it.
talk more, just click on the link and set up a call.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to chat with y'all. Thank you so much for your time. And look in your email tomorrow, you will get the replay
Yeah. With the ebook.
and the ebook. That is right. And share with anybody.
Yeah.
We
Share it with everybody.
That's why we do this. We just want
Everybody
to
you
get
think
the
that
word
would
out.
need it. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a beautiful and blessed night. Take care, everyone, and we'll
Great,
see you
Adolf.
next month on the next webinar.
All right. Have a good night.